Hey, good afternoon. So today I'd like to talk about why renting may be better than buying right now. I addressed this a little bit with my personal situation with retirement prep coming up, but a lot of people have been asking questions, not specifically to me, but to others, about the cost of living and how housing prices and rental markets are going kind of crazy, right? So we all know that housing prices have gone up a lot lately, and the reason I brought this up is I was doing some research looking into Florida prices and etc. And I noticed that on Redfin there was an article about why people were struggling to cover their housing expenses, and it was both houses and mortgages and rent. And the biggest reason, obviously, is because housing prices have gone up. They've literally soared in the last 5 years. So, and that being the case, I just wanted to touch on a few of my thoughts on the situation. So right now, the average, the median homes price is selling for about $378,000. And that was median on Redfin. If you look at different states, every one of them is going to have a little bit different median price. I know in Florida right now, in Tampa area, I think the median is 320. In Miami, it's like 550, whatever. So every place is a little bit. But if you just kind of take a national median, it's coming in right now. This is as of January 2025 anyway, 378. And that's up about 5% year over year. Now, that doesn't seem like it's too bad of a price when you think about it, but consider 20 years ago you could buy the same house for less than 150. So prices are way up overall, and I don't have all those numbers in front of me. But the next big part of this piece of this puzzle is the mortgage rates are up at 7%. Now, I talked about before how when my wife and I bought the house we just sold, we paid 7%, and we were pretty happy to get it because prior to that it had been 7.5% and 8%. So back in 2002 or 3 when we bought and financed our house, it came down to 7%, and we were pretty excited. So 7% is not outrageous, but when you consider that the world has gotten used to, or at least the Americans got used to, rates being in the 3%, 4%, 5% or less, and even fixed rates for 15 years, under 3%. When you get up to 7%, it's a big difference, and it's a lot less house you can afford to buy. That's what really makes the prices go up. And of course, prices have gone up substantially as well. They continue to rise, even though the market's kind of softened a little bit. So I'm not a real estate expert. I'm just giving you information that I've found and shared. So let's consider the fact that you are going to buy at 378. Here's some of the numbers. If you are able to put 20% down, that number is going to be $75,000. Now that's why I say if you're able, because it's pretty hard to save $75,000, let alone saving it just to try to use it to buy a house. But if you did that, that would end up with your principal being $3,000 or $301,000, give or take, and the finances for that would get you to about $217 a month. That's principal and interest. Now, that doesn't include tax and insurance, so let's break that down just a little bit. I can tell you in Northern Illinois, my tax rate for my house that was valued at around $225, $250 was $7,000. In Florida, it averages out to be 1.5% of the sale price, give or take, right? And that, again, always depends on your situation. But so we're just going to kind of go with the 1.5%, and just because it's easier math for me to figure out. So what I came up with there would be that would put your taxes right around $472 a month on top of that, and then average HOA fees, which there's a lot of them in Florida and nationwide. And since I'm kind of using Florida as an example, the average HOA in Florida right now is $250. There's obviously areas that have more. If you your neighborhood you move into is based with a pool and clubhouse and all that other stuff, it's going to be substantially more. And if you don't have an HOA fee, that's even better. So you could count zero. But I'm just kind of giving you an idea of what that number would be. But anyway, and then insurance, my insurance ran me in Illinois roughly $2,000 a year. In Florida, it's $3,000 probably on the minimum side. So taking that number into consideration, you're looking at about another $200 to $300 a month for insurance. That gets your payment somewhere around $3,000 a month. That's pretty hefty payment. When we sold and moved, our payments weren't anywhere near that kind of number. But by the time you add in, we were probably paying close to $200 or $2,000 a month with principal, interest, taxes, insurance. When we sold the house and moved to rent, my rent is with everything, including insurance and electric bills and etc., runs me about $2,000 a month. So it was kind of a wash for us financially. Obviously, no house payment would be better, but that's not the situation we're in, and we're not going to be able to buy in Florida for quite a while because the prices are just going crazy. But that's the number I came up with. The median average right now at 7.04% is $26,806, or $2,686, and that's without insurance and any other HOA fees and taxes. That's just principal and interest. So that kind of gives you an idea where the numbers are at, because people are not really financing with 20% down. That's why there's so many different programs out there to help you get into something at 3% and 5%. VA has programs, etc., for veterans. But if you kind of consider that's pretty expensive. Now, if you put that versus rent right now, like I said, my rent payment versus what I was paying for a house payment was a wash. The advantage we had when we moved is that we took my daughter off campus, which saved us at least $20,000 a year for her to live on campus. And then my wife was able to get a substantial increase in her pay based on working private school in Illinois to public school in Florida. So between the two, we came up with a nice net gain of income versus savings, and it was worth it for us to do that, even to pay rent. But taking the average rent payment right now, if you take the outliers out of the formula, because I looked at the biggest metropolitan areas, and of the top 20 or 30, there was a few outliers that were like $20,000 or $2,000 a month for a one bedroom, $2,500 a month in California in some places, etc. So just kind of took your highest out and your lowest out, which is kind of how we figure up medians at work. It came in around $1,350 a month for a one bedroom. Like I said, in Florida right now, we're paying around $2,000 a month for everything for a two bedroom. But the rents have, for the most part, leveled off now, or they have dropped in most of the bigger areas that I looked at. And all this information's on Redfin, so if you wanted to check it out, you can honestly do your diligence and just get some idea what the numbers are. But most of the rents have either leveled off or dropped at 5 or 10%, give or take, somewhere in between there. So I think right now, and they're saying that this is the lowest that rents have been in the last 3 years by December 2024 numbers. So the fact, because during COVID, everything took off. Rents went up, prices went up. They knew that people couldn't buy, or those that couldn't buy had to pay rent, so that drove the prices of rents up. And supply and demand is what determines price. So when you have a lot of people looking to rent, especially if you're a work from home person wanting to go to a warmer climate, that's why prices went up in all the warm climates, and that's why rent went up as well. So anyway, for us right now, renting is probably going to be our long-term. And some of it's odd, too, when I looked at some of the data that long-term renters, people in the above 60, tend to have been in their rental property for the longest, some of them for decades, in the same rental spot. So if you find something you like, it's affordable, what you're eliminating mostly But renting versus buying is maintenance and upkeep and repairs and etc. I mean, the roof blows off, you fix it. If you got a rental and the roof blows off, the owner fixes it. Whether it's an apartment complex or it's a rental home, you're not responsible for most of that maintenance and or damages and upkeep. So something to consider. Right now, depends on what you think, I guess. Do your own due diligence and see what kind of numbers you come up with and what you think. And thanks for watching as usual, and we'll see you next time.